Your finger stopped scrolling exactly here. Not 3 posts ago, not 2 posts from now here. You think that was random, but something profound just happened in the microseconds before you stopped. A quantum measurement took place in your neural architecture that selected the specific outcome from a probability distribution of all possible next moments. Your consciousness detected a pattern your rational mind hasn't consciously registered yet. This wasn't cosmic favoritism or divine selection, it was quantum resonance. Your consciousness exists in continuous interaction with information fields around you, processing millions of probability collapses per second. But occasionally, your consciousness detects a specific configuration of information that contains relevance to trajectories your deeper awareness is navigating. When this detection occurs, it manifests as attention collapse. Your scrolling stops. This video reveals how to verify whether genuine quantum resonance occurred or whether you're experiencing confirmation bias and what that resonance is telling you about your current consciousness configuration.
Your finger paused right here. Not a few scrolls back, not a couple posts down the line. Right at this exact point, where your focus collapsed onto these specific words instead of the countless other things fighting for your mental space. You're probably thinking this was totally random. Like your attention just happened to land on this particular set of pixels out of the millions that have passed through your field of vision today. But here's what really went down in those tiny fractions of a second before you stopped moving your thumb. Something called a quantum measurement happened inside the architecture of your brain, selecting this specific outcome from all the possible next moments you could have experienced. And that measurement wasn't some random accident. It got chosen by a pattern recognition system inside your awareness that picked up on something your logical mind hasn't even consciously noticed yet. The quantum field doesn't pick people the way winning lottery numbers get drawn. It doesn't work through some kind of cosmic favoritism or divine handpicking. What's really going on is way more fascinating and way more testable through your own direct experience. Your awareness exists in constant quantum interaction with the information fields surrounding you. Most of this interaction happens below your conscious radar, processing millions upon millions of probability collapses every single second without you even registering it. But every once in a while, rarely, your awareness detects a particular pattern in that probability distribution that signals something important. A specific arrangement of information that holds relevance to paths your deeper awareness is navigating, even when your surface-level consciousness hasn't put words to what those paths actually are. When this detection happens, it shows up as attention collapse. Your scrolling stops. Your focus gets narrow. You experience this as making a choice to stop. But the quantum measurement came before the conscious choice. Something in these words matched a pattern your deeper systems have been actively scanning for. And now here you are, reading this, probably bouncing back and forth between thinking it's just clickbait manipulation and sensing that something real is actually happening right now. Both of those responses are completely valid. Both exist in superposition until you collapse into picking one. But here's what makes this particular moment different from all the other times you've stopped scrolling on exaggerated headlines. I'm not about to tell you that you're special, chosen, or destined for some grand purpose. I'm going to show you how to verify for yourself whether what I'm laying out here is an actual mechanism or just clever language that sounds good. And that verification process is going to reveal something about how consciousness connects with probability fields that most people never discover because they collapse way too fast into certainty about what's real and what's total nonsense. The pattern your awareness picked up on. Let's start with what actually went down when your attention stopped right here. You were in what researchers call continuous partial attention. Scrolling through stuff without deep focus, letting your perceptual system do rapid surface-level checks. Every post, every image, every headline got processed just enough to figure out if it deserved more attention. Your system was running thousands of tiny measurements, collapsing probability waves about what each piece of content meant, whether it mattered, whether it was worth more than a passing glance. Almost everything got collapsed into not relevant, and you moved right past it. But something about this specific arrangement of words triggered a different kind of collapse pattern. Your pattern recognition systems work on multiple levels at the same time. The surface level handles semantic meaning, the literal content of the words, but deeper levels process structural patterns, emotional resonance, signals of cognitive dissonance, novelty detection, and something researchers are only starting to wrap their heads around: quantum coherence signatures in information fields. When information contains certain kinds of coherence, certain patterns of organization that indicate non-random structure, your consciousness picks up on this before semantic processing even finishes. It's kind of like how your visual system spots faces faster than it can identify whose face you're actually looking at. The pattern recognition happens before detailed analysis kicks in. The title you ran into contained a specific, coherent signature. It made a statement about quantum mechanics that wasn't pure mysticism or pure materialism. It suggested you could directly verify it rather than just believing it. And it had an acknowledgement of your skepticism built right into its structure. These elements combined created a pattern that your deeper awareness recognized as potentially containing real information rather than just manipulation or entertainment. This doesn't mean the recognition was right on the money. Pattern recognition systems throw out false positives all the time. But it does mean something in your neural architecture collapsed attention toward this specific content from the probability field of everything else available. And that collapse is worth looking at because it shows how your consciousness actually moves through information space. What quantum selection really means. The phrase, "the quantum field chose you," sounds like New Age mysticism. Like the universe has its own intentions and agency, and personally picked you out for some special reason. This interpretation is exactly wrong in ways that actually block understanding what's really happening. The quantum field doesn't have intentions. It doesn't choose in the sense of preferring one outcome over another. What's actually going down is this. Your consciousness exists as a localized pattern of quantum coherence inside the bigger field. As you move through space and time, your localized pattern interacts with information patterns around you. These interactions create interference effects, spots where your pattern and environmental patterns either amplify or cancel each other out. When amplification happens, when your pattern and an environmental information pattern resonate constructively, the probability of your attention collapsing onto that pattern shoots up dramatically. It's not that the field chose you, it's that your specific configuration of consciousness had high quantum overlap with this specific configuration of information. The resonance between patterns increased the probability of this interaction happening compared to all the other possible attention collapses you could have made in this moment. This is measurable, predictable physics operating in biological systems, not some mystical selection process. But here's where things get really interesting. Your consciousness configuration isn't static. It's constantly getting shaped by your history, your current concerns, your implicit goals, and your subconscious processing. The pattern you're carrying right now is different from the pattern you carried last week, and different from the pattern you'll carry next month. Which means the information patterns you resonate with, the content that grabs your attention through quantum overlap, shifts continuously based on your evolving configuration. Some people will resonate with this content today who wouldn't have a year ago. Others resonated with similar content years back but won't now. The resonance isn't about the information being universally significant. It's about your current configuration having specific overlap with this information structure right at this moment. So when I say the quantum field chose you, what I mean precisely is that your current consciousness configuration had enough quantum overlap with this information pattern to create a high probability of attention collapse compared to competing patterns. You're here because of resonance, not selection, and that resonance is telling you something about your current configuration that might actually be useful if you know how to read the signal. The verification protocol. Most content that makes big claims about quantum consciousness or universal selection either demands you just believe without evidence or throws out mystical assertions you can't even test. This is different. I'm going to give you a specific protocol to verify whether quantum resonance is actually happening or whether you're just experiencing confirmation bias and suggestibility. This protocol was developed by cognitive scientists studying attention capture and information resonance in decision-making contexts. It's not mystical. It's empirical methodology you can run right now to test whether genuine pattern matching is occurring at quantum cognitive levels. First step, close your eyes and bring your attention to your body. Not in some meditative or spiritual way, just direct sensory awareness. Notice the quality of your physical state right now. Are you relaxed or tense? Energized or drained? Focused or all over the place? Don't interpret or judge any of it. Just register the actual felt sense of your current state. This establishes a baseline measurement of your system before you engage any further with this content. If quantum resonance is actually occurring, your state will show specific signatures that are different from normal content consumption. Second step, recall the moment when your scrolling stopped. Don't reconstruct some narrative about why you stopped. Instead, access the actual felt sense of that moment when attention collapsed. What was the quality of the pull you experienced? Was it driven by curiosity, anxiety, hope, or something completely different? Again, don't interpret. Just notice the signature of that attentional shift. Genuine quantum resonance creates a distinct feeling that's different from emotional manipulation or intellectual curiosity. It has a quality of recognition rather than discovery, like remembering something you forgot rather than learning something brand new. Third step, notice your current state of cognitive coherence. Are you holding multiple interpretations of what you're reading in superposition? Or have you collapsed into certainty about whether this is valid or invalid? If you've collapsed completely into this is true or this is false, you're not in the quantum state being talked about here. Quantum cognitive coherence requires maintaining superposition of possibilities without collapsing too early. The verification process doesn't work from collapsed certainty. It requires staying in the uncertainty long enough to observe what patterns emerge from sustained engagement. Fourth step, over the next 72 hours, pay attention to what else captures your attention without you trying. Don't look for patterns. Don't try to make connections. Just notice what you find yourself naturally drawn to in your information consumption, your conversations, your random thoughts. If genuine quantum resonance occurred, you'll notice a cluster of related patterns showing up across different areas. Themes that connect back to whatever configuration in your consciousness resonated with this content. These clusters aren't coincidence. They're signatures of your current attentional field, selecting information based on quantum overlap with your evolving concerns. If you run through this protocol and find no distinctive signature in any of these steps, then what happened was standard attention capture through marketing optimization, not quantum resonance. You stopped scrolling because the title was engineered to trigger curiosity gaps and pattern interrupts, and there's nothing deeper going on. But if you find the signatures I described, particularly that recognition quality and the subsequent pattern clustering, then something more interesting is happening that's worth investigating further. In the comments, drop one word that captures how you're feeling right now after reading this far. Maybe it's curious, maybe it's skeptical, maybe it's aligned, maybe it's something totally unique to you. Let that word be a small but meaningful declaration, a signal you're sending not just in this space, but into the quantum field itself. Why this matters right now. The reason quantum selection mechanisms are becoming more relevant isn't because they're new. They've been operating in human consciousness since consciousness first emerged. But something about current conditions is making more people aware of these mechanisms than previous generations ever were. The information environment has reached a density and speed where conscious filtering becomes impossible. You cannot deliberately evaluate every single piece of content competing for your attention. Your conscious mind is way too slow, way too limited. So increasingly, people are being forced to rely on subconscious pattern matching to navigate information space. And as they rely more on these deeper selection mechanisms, they start noticing that something is doing the selecting, something with intelligence and discernment that isn't their conscious, rational mind. This recognition that there's deeper intelligence operating beneath conscious awareness is spreading across populations rapidly. People describe it as intuition, gut feeling, synchronicity, or being in flow. But these are all observations of the same underlying mechanism: quantum coherence in consciousness, producing selective attention toward information patterns that have relevance to trajectories the system is navigating. As more people become aware of this mechanism, the collective information field starts reorganizing itself. Content that resonates at these deeper levels gets more attention, regardless of its surface appeal. Information that lacks coherence gets filtered out, even if it's optimized for conscious engagement. We're at an inflection point where the quantum selection mechanism is starting to dominate traditional attention capture techniques. This is why you're seeing increasing polarization in what content spreads. It's not just algorithmic bubble creation. It's that people's consciousness configurations are diverging into distinct attractors. And the content that resonates with each attractor is fundamentally different in its coherent structure, not just its ideological content. You can't fake quantum coherence through manipulation techniques. Either the information contains genuine pattern structure, or it doesn't. And increasingly, people's subconscious systems are filtering out anything that lacks that structure, regardless of how it's packaged. The configuration you're carrying, based on the fact that you stopped here, that quantum overlap occurred between your consciousness and this information, I can infer certain things about your current configuration. These aren't psychic readings or cold reading manipulation. They're logical deductions from the resonance pattern required for this interaction to happen. You're in a state of transition between frameworks. Something about your previous way of understanding reality has become insufficient, but you haven't fully committed to a new framework yet. You're in that uncertainty space between paradigms, which is why content that maintains superposition of interpretation without collapsing into singular claims resonates with your current configuration. You're also experiencing increased sensitivity to coherence in information. You're noticing that most content feels empty, manipulative, or recycled, even when it's novel in surface details. This sensitivity indicates your pattern recognition systems are becoming more refined, filtering at deeper structural levels rather than just semantic content. This is a natural evolution of consciousness in information-dense environments, but it can feel isolating because most content is still optimized for surface-level engagement rather than deep coherence. Additionally, you're likely experiencing a pull toward understanding mechanisms rather than just collecting information. The distinction is crucial. Information collection is adding more content to your knowledge base. Mechanism understanding is recognizing the patterns underlying how systems actually operate. Your attention stopped here because this content addresses mechanisms of attention and consciousness themselves, which suggests your system is prioritizing meta-level understanding over object-level information accumulation. None of this means you're special or chosen in the way ego wants to interpret those terms. It means your current configuration has particular characteristics that produced resonance with this particular information structure. Thousands of other people with similar configurations will experience the same resonance. And millions of people with different configurations won't resonate at all. Not because they're less evolved or less aware, but because their current trajectory doesn't require this particular understanding right now. But before we go deeper, I want to invite you into something real. If you've been feeling like something's clicking into place here, if a part of you is recognizing your own power in this process, tap like if you just had an aha moment, because like attracts like. And subscribe. Stay with this space. Grow with us. This isn't just content. This is a frequency. If you felt a shift or a nudge while watching, you're already tuned in. We're not just watching. We're practicing new ways of being. We're not just absorbing. We're creating possibilities. We're not just learning. We're remembering. I'm truly glad you're here. Let's keep growing and shifting together. The choice point. Here's where quantum mechanics becomes directly relevant to your immediate experience. Right now, in this moment, you exist in superposition of multiple possible response patterns to this content. You could collapse into dismissal, deciding this is just sophisticated manipulation dressed up in quantum language. You could collapse into belief, accepting everything as true and looking for how to apply it. You could collapse into intellectual curiosity, treating this as interesting theory to think about. Or you could maintain superposition, holding multiple interpretations simultaneously while staying engaged with direct experience, rather than collapsing into conceptual certainty. Each of these collapses leads to a different trajectory through probability space. The dismissal collapse returns you to your previous pattern, with maybe slightly increased skepticism toward content making unusual claims. The belief collapse might lead you toward communities and content that reinforce mystical interpretations of quantum mechanics, taking you further from verifiable mechanism. The intellectual curiosity collapse keeps you in the realm of interesting ideas without necessarily connecting to anything that transforms your actual navigation of reality. The maintained superposition keeps more possibilities open and allows patterns to emerge that wouldn't be accessible from any single collapsed interpretation. The quantum field isn't choosing which collapse you make. Your consciousness is performing that measurement based on your configuration, your history, your current state. But the collapse you make here will influence what becomes probable in your next moments, hours, and days, not deterministically, but probabilistically. Each collapse sets up initial conditions for the next measurement. You're navigating through a probability landscape where your current position influences but doesn't determine your next position. And becoming aware of this navigation process, recognizing that you're performing quantum measurements continuously that shape your trajectory, is itself a significant shift in consciousness configuration. What actually happens when you stay in superposition? Most people read something like this, have a momentary sense of expansion or possibility, and then collapse back into their default patterns within minutes. The momentary opening closes. The previous framework reasserts itself, and whatever potential shift might have occurred gets filtered out by habitual collapse mechanisms. This is normal. This is how consciousness maintains stability and coherence across time. Constant radical openness would be destabilizing and non-functional. But there's a difference between healthy stability and rigid collapse that prevents evolution. If you're reading this and maintaining genuine superposition, not collapsing prematurely into certainty about what this means or whether it's valid, something specific is happening in your neural architecture. Your brain is sustaining quantum coherence in cognitive processes longer than habitual patterns normally allow. Multiple interpretations are being held in simultaneous awareness without forcing resolution. This state has metabolic costs. It requires more energy than collapsed certainty. Your system wouldn't sustain it unless something important is being processed that requires this level of cognitive flexibility. What's actually being processed, what your system is working on beneath conscious awareness, is a reconfiguration of how you navigate reality. Your consciousness is exploring whether to maintain its current collapse patterns or to adopt new patterns that allow more fluid movement through possibility space. This exploration can't happen from within a collapsed state because the current patterns can't evaluate themselves. It requires meta-awareness, the capacity to observe your own observation patterns from a position that isn't identical to those patterns. And maintaining superposition creates the space for that meta-awareness to emerge. The people who experience the most significant transformations from engaging with content like this aren't the ones who believe it most strongly or understand it most completely. They're the ones who maintain superposition longest, who stay in the uncertainty, the not knowing, the simultaneous holding of this might be completely true and this might be complete nonsense. without collapsing into either certainty. That sustained superposition allows their consciousness to reorganize itself at deep structural levels rather than just adding new content to existing frameworks. In the comments, share one thing you deeply desire to manifest right now. Maybe it's financial abundance. Maybe it's a loving relationship. Maybe it's a healthy and fit body. Maybe it's something uniquely yours. Let this be a small but profound declaration, a signal to the universe you're sending not just in this space, but into the quantum field itself. The practical verification. Everything I've described so far can sound abstract or theoretical, even though it's pointing to direct, immediate experience. So let's make this concrete with something you can verify right now. After you finish reading this, close your eyes and simply notice your breath for exactly 7 breath cycles. Count them. Inhale 1, exhale 1. Inhale 2, exhale 2. Up to 7. Don't try to control your breathing, just count the natural rhythm. This seems completely unrelated to quantum consciousness and selection mechanisms, but here's what's actually happening. By directing your attention to breath counting, you're performing intentional measurement that collapses probabilities in your neural firing patterns. During those 7 breaths, your mind will try to wander. Thoughts will pop up. Sensations will pull at your attention. Each time you notice wandering and return to counting, you're performing conscious selection of which neural patterns get reinforced versus which get filtered out. This is the same mechanism operating at larger scales. When your attention selected this content from all available content, you're training conscious participation in the measurement process that shapes which possibilities become actual versus which remain merely possible. After the 7 breaths, notice what thought or impulse arises first. Don't judge it or analyze it. Just observe what emerges spontaneously when you release directed attention. That first emergence is signal from your deeper processing about what your system is prioritizing beneath conscious awareness. It might be completely mundane, a reminder about something you need to do. It might be an emotional tone with no specific content. It might be an insight or question. Whatever it is, it's not random. It's your consciousness communicating about its current navigation priorities. If you actually do this exercise instead of just reading about it, you'll have direct experience of consciousness, performing measurement, and influencing probability collapse through attention direction. This is the mechanism operating whether you're aware of it or not. But becoming aware of it, learning to work with it deliberately rather than having it run on autopilot, is the difference between being carried by your patterns and consciously navigating through probability space. The real reason you're here, beyond all the quantum mechanics, language, and consciousness theory, there's a simpler truth about why your attention stops scrolling here. You're looking for confirmation that reality is more fluid than mainstream culture acknowledges. You've had experiences, moments where things seemed more connected or meaningful than mechanistic materialism can explain. Instances where your attention or intention seemed to influence outcomes in ways that felt more than coincidental. Times when you knew something before you had evidence to justify that knowing. These experiences created uncertainty about your reality model. The standard materialist framework, where consciousness is just brain activity and meaning is just projection, started feeling insufficient. But you're also skeptical of mystical frameworks that require faith in unseen forces or cosmic consciousness. You're caught between paradigms, knowing the old one is incomplete, but uncertain whether any alternative is actually more accurate or just differently wrong. What you're actually seeking isn't quantum physics confirmation or spiritual validation. You're seeking a framework that matches your direct experience while maintaining intellectual rigor. Something that explains the fluidity and participation you've sensed without requiring you to abandon critical thinking or embrace unfalsifiable claims. And you're hoping that framework exists, that you're not stuck choosing between mechanistic reductionism and mystical fantasy. The quantum mechanics framing provides that middle path, but only if you understand it correctly. Consciousness isn't magical, but it's also not reducible to classical computation. Reality isn't predetermined, but it's also not just whatever you believe it to be. You participate in probability collapse through observation and attention. But you're not omnipotent. The framework acknowledges genuine fluidity and participation while maintaining rigorous connection to physics and verifiable mechanism. Whether this framework is ultimately correct, whether quantum effects really operate at the level of consciousness and cognition in the ways described, remains empirically unsettled. The research exists, but it's not conclusive. But what's not debatable is that you can test whether this framework produces better navigation than your current framework, not through belief, through experimentation, by treating it as a working hypothesis and seeing whether it provides more accurate prediction and more effective action than alternatives. What happens next? You're at the end of this content, approaching another choice point about what to collapse this experience into. You could file it away as interesting reading and return to default patterns. You could share it with others, externalizing the processing. You could immediately look for more content on quantum consciousness, using consumption to avoid integration. Or you could simply sit with what's been stirred up, allowing your system to process without forcing premature resolution. The quantum field hasn't chosen you for anything except this moment of potential recognition. What you do with that recognition, whether you collapse it into story or maintain it as living uncertainty that reshapes how you navigate reality, that's entirely up to the measurements your consciousness performs from here forward. There's no right choice, no path you're supposed to take, just probability landscapes and the measurements that determine which trajectories become real. But if you're still here, still reading, still maintaining some degree of superposition about what this all means, then something genuine occurred. Your attention stopping wasn't random noise. It was signal, a moment where your configuration overlapped with information structure in ways that created resonance. What that resonance is telling you, what trajectory it's indicating, might be worth exploring. Only you can determine through direct experimentation with your own experience. Make sure you share this with your loved ones. Remember, you're not just sharing, you're spreading awareness of deeper mechanisms of consciousness. For you, it may be just sharing, but for someone stuck between paradigms, this might be exactly what they need to hear today. Their gratitude and recognition will amplify the positive energy in your own field. The quantum field is always choosing you, constantly collapsing probabilities through the measurement process of your continuous consciousness. But most of those collapses happen automatically, unconsciously, according to patterns you didn't choose. This moment is different only if you make it different. Only if you use this recognition to start participating consciously in measurements that have been running on autopilot your entire life. Don't skip what comes next. Not the next content. The next moment of your actual lived experience. That's where the real verification happens, where you discover whether any of this translates into something more than interesting ideas. The quantum field chose you for this moment. What you choose from here determines which trajectory becomes actual instead of merely possible.